It never hurts to ask again. So how do you write? Sometimes when you're writing an essay, it can be very easy to get overwhelmed by the details, by the level of research you find, by the pressure and all that fun stuff. And when that happens, it's a good idea to go back to the basics. I know this is something we've talked about before, actually, in our first video about this delicious type of sandwich. But how we go about writing is a subject that bears repeating. And I think it's time for us to do another back to basics kind of look at how we engage the writing process. And this comes from my direct experience. I think I mentioned before that over the summertime, instead of doing fun vacation stuff, I tend to spend my time grading. I do grading for one of the major high school testing companies that takes care of college level classes in high school. And it's not so much this marking through everything that you see on the screen, it's so much as it is just coming up with ranks for the writing. So I have to go through a lot of stuff fairly quickly and quickly find out the good qualities, the bad qualities, and come to some level of judgment. Now, the funny thing about this, at least the first time I did it, to me was that my table leader told me I was more accurate when I went fast than when I went slow. And I went and looked at some research on the teaching of writing, and they say in general that's true. Slowing down doesn't tend to make you any more accurate in your grades. It's all a matter of what you look for. And if you don't know where to start on something, the first thing you need to do is look at the question, look at the prompt. And the prompt for this year's writing, which I'm doing as I film this video, is something about perfection. I can't give you the exact quote, just like I can't tell you any exact stories, but it was something to the effect of, what is the value of striving for perfection? Answer in an essay which includes a thesis statement, which states a defendable position, supporting evidence, an explanation of how that evidence supports the thesis, and proper writing mechanics. And none of this really should be a mystery to you, because this is all stuff that we've talked about before. So when I'm grading these things, those are what I look at. I go to look at the requirements, and I look to see where I can find the writer fulfilling those requirements in a paper. The first thing I look for is the thesis statement, which states a defendable position. Then I look for supporting evidence. I look to see if there's an explanation of how that evidence supports the thesis, and then I look at the little nitpicky stuff. So knowing this should inform how you would go about writing one of these essays. So what do you do when you're trying to write this kind of essay, if you know those are the requirements? Well, one of the more straightforward approaches is to come up with a good outline. Outlines tend to encompass everything, keep things within their place. At least that's what my tattoo artist says. So let's take a sample argument about perfection. That perfection sucks. We'll need to go into a little bit more detail about that. That's fine, and we'll need to find some specific examples. Not general examples. The more specific you get, the more specific something is in the reader's point of view. I could talk about beauty in generic terms, but you're not going to learn as much about beauty as you would if I pointed you towards someone who's beautiful. So, our argument is that perfection sucks. We need to come up with some examples to say why perfection sucks. And three of the more common ones I've encountered this time around are The Great Gatsby, Hannah Montana, Honestly, more than anyone else, Hannah Montana has been cited in these essays so far. And I see a whole lot of Bob Ross. So we put that in an outline, and you come up with something like this. The quest for perfection is inherently flawed. Being perfect is hard to keep up. That's one of the messages of The Great Gatsby. Gatsby can't keep up his perfect image. It's okay not to be perfect, as long as you're good. That seems to be a message from Hannah Montana, which resonated with a whole lot of people who wrote these essays. And sometimes imperfections can even become the highlight of your work. That's Bob Ross's happy little accidents. So if you know that when I'm grading, I'm going to be searching for these kind of things, that should be what you put in your mind when you write a specific thesis, specific supporting claims, each with a vivid, specific example. Really, you would be shocked at how many papers would be improved if those were the things that jumped out at me. And it seems like it's a basic approach, but a basic approach can be really good here. How you connect things, how you make things flow are important, but it's not as important as getting the content right to begin with. So that's a basic approach to writing. Thesis statement, points and argument, supporting evidence. And it might seem like I'm drilling down really basic past stuff you've already blown through, but trust me, almost every paper I see that needs improvement in these kind of areas. This is a lesson that you can apply to any piece of writing. Go back to the requirements and make sure they're the most clear and obvious things there. I would love it if all we had to focus on was making the prose florid and languish and wonderful. But the basics, getting the argument and the details clear as the most important things in the paper, sometimes that's the thing you need most. See you in the next video.